The day he realized he was doing everything, except what mattered. He rushed into the conference room, breathless from his last meeting. 12 unread emails, 3 overlapping commitments, a boss glaring from across the table. "I thought you said you could handle this," she asked. He smiled weakly. "I thought I could too." And that's when it hit him. He wasn't failing because he was lazy. He was failing because he was trying to do everything. And in doing everything, he was accomplishing nothing that truly mattered. Sound familiar? We've all been there. Overwhelmed, overloaded, overbooked, hoping that one more to-do list will fix it all. But what if the real answer isn't doing more? What if the answer is doing less better? The common problem when busy becomes a way of life. We live in a world addicted to hustle. Everyone's moving fast, checking boxes, attending meetings, replying to emails at midnight, because being busy feels like being important. But Greg McKeown asks us to pause and ask, are we investing in the right things? Or are we just reacting to everything? Too many of us are trapped in what he calls the undisciplined pursuit of more. More tasks, more obligations, more commitments, and the result? Burnout, mediocrity, a life full of movement, but empty of meaning. The promise of the book, The Way of the Essentialist Essentialism, is not about getting more done. It's about getting the right things done. It's about learning to say no gracefully, to prioritize ruthlessly, and to focus deeply on what truly moves the needle in your life. Greg promises that if you adopt the mindset of an essentialist, you'll gain clarity, reduce stress, and reclaim control of your time, energy, and choices. Because when you focus on less, you make room for what matters most. Key lessons that will change. How you live and work. Lesson 1. If you don't prioritize your life, someone else will. In one of the most eye-opening chapters of Essentialism, Greg McKeown tells the story of a highly respected CEO, a man known for his brilliance, work ethic, and willingness to help others. But behind closed doors, he was struggling. Each day, his inbox exploded with requests. Teams from all departments wanted his input. Clients asked for his time. He was double-booked in meetings, overcommitted on projects, and constantly playing catch-up. He was respected. He was needed. But he was also drowning. His calendar looked impressive, jam-packed with important appointments. But deep down, he knew something was wrong. He wasn't moving the company forward. He was reacting, not leading. Then one day, after missing another crucial opportunity due to a conflict, he asked himself a radical question. What if I stopped trying to do it all? That moment changed everything. He made a bold decision to eliminate 90% of the requests that came his way. Not because they weren't worthy, but because they weren't essential. He chose to focus only on the few areas where his contribution was truly irreplaceable, where his involvement created exponential value, not just incremental progress. At first, the world pushed back. Some colleagues were disappointed, some didn't understand, but soon something unexpected happened. He started producing better results by doing less. Meetings became more strategic, projects moved faster, his leadership became clearer, and most importantly, he had time to think, to lead intentionally, not reactively. Greg uses this story to deliver one of the most powerful truths of the book. If you don't prioritize your life, someone else will. Think about that. If you don't take control of your schedule, someone else will fill it with their priorities. If you don't define what matters most to you, the world will decide for you, and it rarely chooses wisely. You'll be pulled into meetings you shouldn't attend, projects that don't align with your goals, tasks that drain your energy, but don't serve your purpose. That's why essentialism begins not with productivity, but with permission. The permission to stop trying to do it all. The permission to say no without guilt. The permission to protect your time, your focus, and your energy like the rare and precious resources they are. Because only when you start choosing what not to do, can you finally give your best to what truly matters. This lesson isn't just for CEOs, it's for you, the parent who feels pulled in every direction, the creative juggling too many projects, the professional stuck in endless meetings. You may not be able to change everything overnight, but you can begin today by asking, what's one thing I can let go of so I can fully show up for what matters most? Start there, and remember, the most successful people don't do more. They do what matters, and they do it well. Lesson 2. Saying no is a skill, not a sin. We've all been there. Someone asks for a favor. A friend invites us to an event. A colleague wants us to jump on just one quick thing. And before we even process it, the word leaves our mouth. Sure. Why? Not because we have the time, not because it's aligned with our goals, but because we're afraid of what might happen if we say no. We fear being seen as selfish, as unhelpful, as difficult. But Greg McKeown challenges that fear with one of the boldest truths in essentialism. Every time you say yes to something non-essential, you are saying no to something that truly matters. Let that sink in. That casual yes you gave to the committee, it might mean saying no to family dinner. That sure, I'll do it in the office, it might cost you the quiet time you needed to think, rest, or create. In our desire to be liked, needed, or included, we often sacrifice what's essential for what's immediate, but essentialists know better. They know that no isn't a rejection, it's a declaration that your time, energy, and focus are not infinite, a declaration that not everything deserves a seat at your table. And contrary to what you might think, no can be graceful, kind, even generous. Greg offers simple, powerful scripts for saying no without guilt. I'd love to help, but I'm fully committed right now. This sounds great, but I need to check my priorities first. Thanks for thinking of me, but this isn't a fit for me at the moment. It's not about being rude, it's about being clear. Because when you say no deliberately, you say yes to the things that truly reflect who you are and where you're going. One story from the book is especially powerful. Greg describes a successful entrepreneur who had one rule. If the opportunity isn't a clear, undeniable yes, then it's a no. No hesitation, no guilt. He knew that 1,000 small distractions can rob you of your one big purpose. And the funny thing? The more he said no, the more respected he became. Why? Because people sensed his clarity, his confidence, his boundaries. In a world where everyone's chasing everything, the person who knows what to decline stands out. So ask yourself, how many things have you said yes to this week that you didn't really want to? How many of those yeses are pulling you away from what truly matters? Now imagine this. What if you gave yourself the permission to pause before responding, to check in with your values, to weigh the cost, to protect your energy? Because the truth is, every yes comes with a price. And if you don't learn to say no gracefully today, you'll pay that price in burnout, stress, and regret tomorrow. So go ahead, practice. Say no with kindness. Say it with courage. Say it with clarity. Not because you don't care, but because you finally do. Lesson 3. Do less, but do it deeper. In a world obsessed with hustle, speed, and productivity hacks, we often fall into the trap of believing that the more we do, the more successful we become. check more boxes, attend more meetings, respond to more emails, juggle more responsibilities. But Greg McKeown challenges this mindset with a quiet yet radical truth. Being busy is not the same as being productive. Doing more does not mean achieving more. The essentialist doesn't chase volume. The essentialist chases depth. They understand that real impact doesn't come from spreading yourself thin, but from going deep on the few things that truly matter. Greg illustrates this beautifully through the story of a world-renowned designer. This designer, at the height of his career, made an unconventional choice. He decided to take on only 3 projects a year. Just 3. In a culture that glorifies fully booked calendars and no days off, this might sound reckless, even lazy. But here's what happened. Because he focused so deeply, so completely on each project, his work didn't just meet expectations, it exceeded them. His designs didn't just look good, they were visionary. His clients didn't just feel satisfied, they were transformed. And his name didn't just get mentioned, it became legendary. Why? Because he gave his full presence to every brushstroke, every idea, every detail. When you go all in on less, the result is almost always more powerful. This isn't just a creative principle, it's a life principle. Think about it. One deep, uninterrupted hour with your child is worth more than a weekend of distracted parenting. One focused conversation with your team can solve more than 10 scattered email chains. One bold, intentional project can open more doors than 10 half-hearted efforts. But in order to go deep, you have to first clear the clutter. You have to eliminate distractions, both digital and emotional. You have to create space, not just in your schedule, but in your mind. Because depth can't survive in chaos, and excellence can't breathe in busy. Greg writes that essentialists deliberately create margin. They build in time to think, to reflect, to be present. They protect their energy so they can show up fully for what matters most. This is not laziness. It's mastery. It's choosing to do fewer things better, to pour your soul into the meaningful instead of drowning in the meaningless. So ask yourself, where in your life are you spreading too thin? What project, relationship, or goal deserves more of your presence, not just your time? What could you let go of so you can go deeper on what truly counts? Because in the end, you won't be remembered for how much you did. You'll be remembered for the depth of what you gave. Lesson 4. Rest is not a reward, it's a requirement. In today's culture, rest is often treated like dessert. You only get it if you've earned it. After the grind, after the 12-hour workday, after the inbox hits 0, which it never does. We wear exhaustion like a badge of honor. We confuse being busy with being important. But Greg McKeown flips that thinking on its head with a powerful reminder. You cannot operate at your highest level if you are constantly running on empty. Essentialists don't wait to burn out before they rest. They rest as a strategy, not as an afterthought. They understand something that most of us overlook. Rest is not a break from productivity. It's what makes productivity possible. Greg invites us to reframe how we think about sleep, solitude, and recovery, not as indulgences, but as essentials. He points to high performers across industries, CEOs, athletes, artists, who fiercely protect their rest routines. Why? Because they know that brilliance doesn't come from running harder on the treadmill. It comes from stepping off it, gaining perspective, and letting the mind and body renew. One story stands out. A top executive who once prided herself on working 70-hour weeks. She thought skipping sleep was a sign of commitment until the day she forgot her child's birthday. Not because she didn't care, but because her brain was simply overloaded. That moment broke her. From that point forward, she began treating rest like a meeting with the CEO of her life, non-negotiable. And everything changed. Her decisions became sharper. Her presence became fuller. Her impact grew, not in spite of her resting more, but because of it. Greg encourages us to design space into our lives. Space for sleep. Not just enough to survive, but enough to thrive. Space for solitude, to hear your own thoughts above the noise. Space for play, to reconnect with joy and creativity. Space for breaks, not as escape, but as renewal. Rest is not what you do when everything is done. Rest is what allows you to do what matters. Well, so if you've been feeling foggy, frantic, or fried, maybe the answer isn't another app or time management system. Maybe it's a nap, a walk, a day off, a deep breath. Because when you're rested, you think better, you choose better, you lead better, you live better. Ask yourself, have I been treating rest as optional or as essential? What would change in my life if I started honoring my limits instead of pushing past them? Essentialism teaches us this simple truth. You are not a machine. You are a person with limits, and those limits deserve respect. So give yourself permission to slow down, not as a sign of weakness, but as a sign of wisdom. Lesson 5. Cut the good to pursue the great. Imagine a gardener standing in front of a tree. It's healthy, full of leaves, branches stretching in every direction. But the gardener knows something that most people overlook. If the tree tries to grow in every direction, it won't grow strong in any direction. So, with care, not cruelty, he begins to prune. Not just the dead branches, but the healthy ones too. The ones that look promising, but steal energy from the branches that matter most. That's what essentialism is. Not just about eliminating the trivial, but about cutting even the good things, so the great things can thrive. Greg McKeown reminds us that life is full of good opportunities. A part-time side gig that brings in money, but leaves you drained. A committee role that makes you feel helpful, but not fulfilled. A project that looks shiny on paper, but distracts from your deeper mission. Most of us say yes to these things because they seem too good to turn down. But here's the truth. Greg delivers with clarity. It's not what you say yes to that defines your success. It's what you say no to, even when it's good, tempting, or popular. He shares a powerful example of a successful entrepreneur who had dozens of offers on the table. Consulting, interviews, speaking gigs, book deals. Each opportunity seemed too good to pass up, but he realized that chasing them all was pulling him away from his true passion, building one game-changing product. So, he said no to all of them. And the result? He didn't just create a better product, he created a category-defining one. Because he was no longer busy. He was focused. That's what pruning does. It looks painful in the moment. People may question your decisions. Some might even walk away. But with time, the results speak for themselves. More clarity, more impact, more growth in the direction that matters most. Greg encourages us to ask a simple essentialist question. Is this the very best use of my time and energy right now? If the answer is anything less than a resounding yes, it might be time to let it go. That can mean letting go of a job title that no longer fits your purpose. Walking away from a partnership that feels good, but not aligned. Saying no to a good enough opportunity so you can wait for the right one. It's not easy, but growth rarely is. And just like the gardener, you're not cutting to destroy. You're cutting to strengthen. So ask yourself, what are the good-looking branches in my life right now? What am I holding on to out of fear, obligation, or habit? What would open up if I created space for greatness to emerge? Because in the end, success doesn't come from doing more. It comes from doing less, with intention. Remember, you're not here to be busy. You're here to bloom. The moment that changes everything. Every great book has one moment that hits you like a wave. Quiet at first, then unstoppable. For Essentialism, that moment is deeply personal. It's not a theory. It's not a productivity hack. It's a story about regret. Greg McKeown shares it with honesty and vulnerability. His wife was pregnant, due any day. And like any expectant father, he wanted to be there when the moment came. But just days before her due date, he received a message from a client, asking him to attend a critical meeting. It was urgent, important, career-defining, they said. He felt the pressure, so he made a choice. He said yes to the meeting. And not long after, as he sat across the table from executives in suits, half listening to strategy discussions and budget breakdowns, his phone buzzed. His wife had gone into labor. Their daughter was on her way. In that moment, he knew what he should do. He could have stood up, apologized, left the meeting, but he didn't. Whether out of fear, obligation, or conditioning, he stayed. And as the meeting dragged on, his daughter entered the world without him. No first cry, no hand to hold, no proud moment of awe and wonder, just silence and the weight of a choice he would never be able to undo. Greg writes that something inside him broke that day, not because of the people in the room, not because of the meeting itself, but because he realized he had become so conditioned to say yes to what was expected, that he said no to what was essential. That moment became his turning point. He didn't just regret it. He rebuilt his entire philosophy of life around it. From that pain, Essentialism was born, not as a set of rules, but as a vow to never again trade what truly matters for what merely seems urgent, a vow to never again confuse expectation with priority, a vow to never again live a life of automatic yeses and unconscious sacrifice. He understood, finally and fully, that clarity requires courage, that protecting what's essential will sometimes disappoint others, but far worse is the disappointment you carry when you betray yourself. So he began saying no, not to be defiant, but to be deliberate. He began making space, not just in his calendar, but in his soul. And in doing so, he didn't lose opportunities. He found freedom. Because sometimes the greatest lesson comes not from success, but from the moment you almost missed what mattered most. Ask yourself, what am I saying yes to today that I might one day regret? What would change if I honored the truly essential, no matter what? Because you don't need a life-altering mistake to start living intentionally. You just need the courage to choose what matters now. Closing reflection. A life that truly matters. Essentialism isn't a tactic. It's a way of life. It's the quiet courage to say, this matters. I'll give it my all. This doesn't. I'm letting it go. It's not about minimalism for the sake of aesthetics. It's about maximum impact with minimum waste. In a noisy world that demands everything from you, Essentialism gives you permission to protect the few things that actually define you. Reclaim your life. One essential choice at a time. If you've ever felt spread too thin, if you've ever said yes when your heart screamed no, if you're ready to stop reacting and start choosing, then Essentialism is not just a book, it's a wake-up call. Subscribe to Audiobook Bites for more powerful summaries like this one. Or better yet, pause right now, take a breath, and ask yourself, What is the one essential thing I should be doing today? Start there. Because you can do anything, but not everything.